It's the Tartan Daily, and we're back. And back with me today is Mr. Stefan Carlin. I can't believe that we're at a dozen of these episodes, mate. It's time is flying. And I have missed doing the Tartan Daily yesterday due to internet issues at this hotel. So I'm going to treat you today. We're doing a double header, one after the other. So first off, we've got Stefan, and then we've got Mr. Adam Miller, Old Firm Facts himself, is coming on. So we're going to start off with Stefan, and I thought you did the player ratings with me against the Czech Republic. It should be again, mate. But I think it's going to be a much happier bunch of ratings this time. I think that's safe to say, isn't it?
It's safe to say. There's a player in particular that absolutely slated by me that is now going to receive possibly the highest rating I'm probably ever going to give. So
I wonder who that might be. No spoilers here. Mate, first off, I want to ask you, how did you watch the game? Like, how did it go? This is the first actual pod I've done since the game. I did like a wee poem the day after, and then I had internet problems yesterday. So this is the first time I've had to bask in the glory of the best 0-0 draw in history. Like, I'm still buzzing, mate. I'm not going to lie, I'm still buzzing. London is still buzzing as well. Like, there's still Scottish folk kicking about, and they changed this city, mate. Like, London is one of these places that's this big, vast urban metropolis, right? And normally it's like everyone's in a rush. I don't know, it's like it's not the most interreactive of cultures in London. It's like, normally if you're going to, you stick to your own group, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mate, that's just been flipped in its head. Everybody's seen the videos on social media. Everybody's seen Scotland fans. My personal favourite was saying you're just a bleep Robbie Burns singing that at the William Shakespeare statue. Outstanding.
I enjoyed that. I have to say, there was a couple of other chants maybe within the stadium that I liked about Tyrone Mings being called a bleep Grant Hanley. Couldn't resist thinking that was a topper. To be honest, but no, listen. Well, what a game! I covered it live for a it's called Pass the Mic, and
right.
Possibly one of the hardest things I've had to do is remain professional during it, because I kept on getting I can't explain. I kept on like wanting to blurt things out and that I couldn't. But I did let myself down at the end, because when the final whistle went, I just absolutely lost it. And people can laugh at that, and I have seen people saying, well, you know, what are these people celebrating a draw for? And listen, it was a vital point for Scotland, and to do it in Wembley. And I think the last time that there was a 0-0 draw at Wembley was 2010 World Cup qualifier, or it was in 2010. It was against Montenegro, I believe. So it doesn't happen at Wembley a lot.
I'm liking that. You're getting in there early on with the like, high rateable value points of view, which I like. Do you know one? I was in a thing for Football Joe, like joe.co.uk after it. And the lad that was on me, Ruben Pinder, he pointed out there was 2 Champions League winners in the park, and they were both playing for Scotland. And I was like, yes, I didn't even think of that, which is superb. Andy Robertson and Billy Gilmour, obviously. So, I mean, both of them were brilliant. Captain, just looks every inch of Scotland captain. Love the way he came out and defended his troops after the game. And Billy Gilmar, I mean, we'll get to the superlatives once we get into the nitty-gritty of the ratings. But did you enjoy your experience of watching the game? I didn't know you were actually doing something work-wise, mate. Anyone that's doing anything work-wise, I'm just so delighted, like, for them, because that's what you should be doing around this. It's why I started this podcast, you know what I mean?
Yep. Listen, I did enjoy it. I thought Scotland played better than England, and people could say...
mate. Like, we were much the better team.
People can say, well, no, they didn't. This was a poor England team. This was not a poor England team, and I'm not having...
We don't have a poor England team, right? Talent-wise, they are stacked.
It's probably the best England team there's been since perhaps the golden generation of Scholes, Lampard, Beckham, etc. You know, they've got guys like Phil Foden, who was their danger man, was pocketed by Motherwell's very own Stephen O'Donnell. Raheem Sterling tearing it up in the Champions League and the Premier League, pocketed by Motherwell's Stephen O'Donnell. Harry Kane was kept out of the game by Grant Hanley from Norwich, and they're saying that this was a poor England team. It was not.
We don't throw shade at Norwich on this podcast, but just point that out.
No, never.
Amazing, wasn't
it? It was truly one of the best performances I've seen from a Scotland team against, and I'm going to pay compliment to them, a high class opposition, and I think this is now a turn, not a turning point, but it's a defining moment under Steve Clarke, where we're starting to really see how much these players play for him. And he set the game plan, and they executed it to perfection. And I don't think there's any greater compliment a manager can receive than when his players go out and play for him 100%.
That is absolutely it. That was one of the lines in my poem, that the 11 men stuck to Steve Clarke's game plan. Absolutely brilliant. If you've not checked out that poem, by the way, it's 2.5 minutes of your life, but I hope you enjoy it. That's down as episode 10. I'm still delirious, mate. So the way that I watched it was in a pub, but it was like a pub in London, and it was set up for the football, and there was England fans on the other side of us, and they were like chatting, "Let Scotland get battered everywhere they go." And I'm proud that Grant Hanley is my club's captain as well. Good stuff. Andy Snack in there with the comments saying Hanley was fantastic. Proud he's my club's captain too. I like the England fans. Just like, see, to be honest, their chanting is just rotten. Like, it's just no as imaginative, no as funny, just no as good. Like, we are better at that. We are better at that. Scottish football fans generally, and Scottish gig fans, Scottish crowds, right, are just better at being a crowd and supporting something. You know what I mean?
Have you seen the thing on YouTube where it's an American reacts to Scottish crowds versus English crowds? Have you seen it? Because that's mental. And tell you what, the English fans think that there's something they've not met a Scottish crowd that will ever, sort of be defeated, because our fans in our game of it's different. Do you know that? Because it's so raw, it's so emotive. The passion bleeds through, and you hear it. Whereas down in England, it's the prawn sandwich brigade. It's Scotland get battered everywhere they go, even though they don't. It's the football's coming home, even though it's not. It's just boring. It's boring. It's juvenile. It's terrible. It's poor. It's embarrassing.
Boring as well. That Gascoigne goal, it was one of the greatest goals in Euros history, arguably, right? And they've bored me of it. Like, I'm sick of watching it. I'm sick of the dentist chair celebration. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a sick enough for Scotland, but then the passage of time means that you eventually go, oh my goodness, what a moment in the game to do it. All of that kind of stuff. But they've just kicked the Bahookie right out it. And now I'm just like that. Nightmare. Phoebe's getting in touch to say, morning guys, the Scots were brilliant on and off the field, must be said. Aye, we were. I'm proud of my country. Said that in the poem as well. It's fans and players alike. Unbelievable, mate. I mean, look at me. I've started talking about it again. Like, my life had kind of gone back to some semblance of normality, and now that I've started talking about this, thinking about this again, I'm just sitting here with absolute cheeser in my face.
It's that feeling I've still doesn't quite compare to Serbia, of course, but still have that sort of knot in my stomach where Scotland have actually went and done something. But I suppose it all hinders on Tuesday, and is whether or not we're celebrating this draw for a reason.
Folk are going to say this is defeatist, right? But I'm happy now. Like, as long as we don't get absolutely gubbed on Tuesday, right? I'm happy with how the Euros has gone. If we were going to take 1 point, it needs to be against England. The only way that this would now be a rotten Euros is if England go on and win it. Whereas if they don't, then I'm quite happy. Like, is that defeatist or is that realistic? What is it? I mean, but that said, I think we can go and beat Croatia. I mean, Luka Modric is the standout in their team. My worry is Ante Rebic has been rotten in the first 2 games, so it'd be just like the thing if he turned up against Scotland. But if he's as poor as he's been in the 2 games, and I mean, touching wood here, but if our defence plays like it did against England, then I have absolute confidence in us going into that game to go and get the win, man.
To answer your question, yes, it's very defeatist. How you're an Norwich fan when you're hitting out with that? Listen, look, Scotland on Tuesday are more than capable of beating Croatia, because Croatia are not the team they were 3 years ago. They have Ante Rebic, who hasn't been in the best of form, in this World Cup, this Euro Championship. The only threat I really see from Modric is in the centre of the park and on the left-hand side, and that's in Ivan Perisic and Luka Modric. However, I think Scotland are more than capable of dealing with the threat of Luka Modric, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think we have a better midfield three than them, and I think we have a better. I was going to say we have a better left back. We do have a better left-handed side in Tierney and Robertson, but obviously Perisic will go up on the right. But listen, Stephen O'Donnell kept Foden, Sterling, and Grealish quiet. Why can he not keep the ageing Ivan Perisic quiet? So it's going to be a hard game, but Scotland will know that it'll be in front of a home crowd, and hopefully, and I said this on last Monday on Go Radio, but hopefully people don't put expectations on Scotland to go through, because I think right now, when the expectations are off of us, we will play well. As soon as there's an expectation on us, we will crumble. So people need to keep their emotions in check.
Is that also defeatist, right? Because I actually think this Scotland team's mentally stronger than that. I think they proved their mental strength with the way that they responded to what was pretty barbed criticism after a game against the Czechs, where, yes, the result was poor. And that was the point Steve Clarke made. The result was poor. He didn't think the performance was that bad. I don't think the performance was that good, but I think on another day we could easily have got a point out of that game. Just like on another day, we could easily get 3 points out of the England game.
The performance was there. It was just the lack of clinical edge that Scotland had, opposed to the Czech Republic, who had it. But the performance wasn't poor. There was some individual performances that were poor, but as a collective, it was a positive performance from Scotland, and just unlucky. But getting into the England game, and this is where the expectation comes in, no one expected Scotland to go down there and get a point. No one expected them to rock up to Wembley and play England off the park, which they did, by the way.
They did.
So it's just about managing expectations. Don't put unnecessary pressure on the boys. I think they know what's at stake. And I think they did it in Serbia. They can do it in Glasgow. There's no doubt in my mind they'll be able to do it. But it's just about what Scotland team performs and shows up on the day. But
see, the other thing as well, see that home crowd. See how energised they're going to be. I mean, against the Czechs, they were good. I think it's going to be a different level. Against Croatia, I really do. And I'm so excited to see that, to be honest. Like, part of me is wanting to just go up outside Hampden and pay the $2,500 I'll need for a ticket off a tout, you know? I'm honestly, like, I don't remember being this happy about Scotland, because even the other results we've had, like the win against Italy, the win against France spring to mind, or 2 wins against France, that I can remember, but it was like, it was part of a qualification campaign. This is a major tournament, and this is a major tournament where we've come and we've given a performance that I'll remember forever more. And do you know what? Right, it's restored my love of football a wee bit, because, like, what other game could end? Like, what other sport could a game end 0-0, no goals, and bring so much joy? Like, because I'm still delirious, mate. Like, still really, really happy. And I honestly think we've got a good chance. Just before we get into the ratings, which we'll need to do soon, let's just talk about the overall tactical setup. Obviously, having Keenan Taylor back was massive. Yeah. And made a big difference. But see the genius of Steve Clarke, right? Fitting a midfielder and a left back as the two side centre backs. And what it's done is it gives us this majestic ability to play out for the back. It actually by playing both players out of position, it almost maximises their attributes. That's fantastic tactical acumen. That's easy to say. What, 20 past 10 in the morning? But no, that is fantastic tactically to do that, to produce that.
I think I said last week on the podcast, maybe I was wrong, maybe I said it the other day on the other thing I was working on, but Scott McTominay playing in the defence, I think, is for Scotland, is better than Scott McTominay playing in midfield. Now, don't get me wrong, he's an incredible midfielder, but having the ability to be a ball-playing centre-back, because you are naturally a midfielder, works wonders for Scotland. And okay, he got caught by Raheem Sterling, or was it Foden? He got caught by one of them early on in the England game, but other than that, I don't think he put a foot wrong. A couple of passes, I would have said I would have given it to someone else, but it's honestly just Steve Clarke having that sort of foresight to see where these guys can play and how it can benefit the team. I think it's just unrivaled, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it. But then again, I don't think Steve Clarke gets enough credit in general. So I
think he might after this. Like, if you look at the last two managerial jobs he's done, they've both been fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any disputing that. And to be honest, at West Brom, I think they got a bit bored of the football, right? But he led them to a record Premier League finish the season before he got billeted. So, I mean, he's no that bad a manager, let's be honest. And what an appointment as well. Like, everybody was a bit underwhelmed with the appointment. I said at the time, the one thing I liked about it is he had made a team which has now been relegated, but he made them play above their station, so high above their station. There was better Kilmarnock teams in seasons before that, didn't he do as well? You know what I mean? Better groups of players, I think, in terms of the individuals involved. And someone that can make it more than the sum of the parts is exactly what you need as a Scotland manager. And as far as I'm concerned, he's got the job as long as he wants it now.
The thing about Steve Clarke came into the job, you know, people were underwhelmed. I wasn't. Listen, it was we had Alex McLeish that took us to Kazakhstan and get thumped 3-0.
Nice.
I was never convinced by the appointment after starting to appoint Alex McLeish. I think I tweeted when it was announced, turn the lights out and, you know, last one out, shut the door, because it's over. But, you know, fair dues to Alex McLeish, because he got us to that Nations League finish that allowed us to get to here, to where we are. Obviously, we had to go through the Israelis, by the way. Israel, after this Nations League coming up in September, October, November. If we never play Israel again, it'll be too soon. But then to go on to Serbia and do what we did there, it was all a platform built by Alex McLeish. But I don't think we would have got where we are if it hadn't been for Steve Clarke. If McLeish had continued on, I don't think we would be where we are.
No chance, man. Like, I don't think McLeish is the manager he used to be honest.
No.
By the way, people will have noticed I've just put the handles up on the screen, which I had removed for another reason and then forgot to put them back up. You see, at the Stefano Talks is Stefan's handle. That's his own podcast, so make sure and go and check that out as well, everybody, because it's some really good listening there. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the ratings, mate. We've got half an hour to get through these, which I think is ample. Just quickly, before we go into that, I just want to give a bit of contrast. So we did the ratings for the Czech Republic game, and I would say like there was a kind of pattern sort of set itself where you would rate the players one less than me. You said you were going by a kind of Bild, the German newspaper style, and then I wasn't. There were a few discrepancies to that rule. Obviously, Stephen O'Donnell was rated poorly. You rated him a 3 after that game. I gave him a 4. Jack Henry, you gave a 6, and I gave a 4. That was one of the discrepancies. Another one was McTominay, who I gave a 4, you gave a 5. And I'm just looking here, and you gave Dykes a 3, which I thought was incredibly harsh. And then I gave him a 6 because I didn't think he was that bad. So those were the exceptions to the rule there. I've no actually gone into my full sort of anorak hold-up mode and done an average mean across the ratings, but just looking at it here, I would say it's like between 5 and 4, 5 or 6. So let's say maybe round about 5 for them all. So I think the average rating for these players is going to be higher. But
I got a text after that podcast saying, I can't believe you gave Scott McTominay a 5. He was absolutely rotten. I
agree with that person. I thought he was rotten.
No, honestly, Scott McTominay's a different class of player. You see it and you don't, but for me, I couldn't give him anything below a 5 was unmerited, in my opinion.
Fair enough, my man. Fair enough. Right. Well, anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. So, David Marshall, in the opening game against the Czechs, you gave him a 5. I gave him a 6 because I didn't think he was that bad. Barry's one big error.
Yeah.
What are you giving him for Wembley?
He had a decent game. He didn't have much to do because I think the defence nullified the threat that the English had. However, he pulled off I don't want to say sensational because I hate using hyperbole, but I pulled off a great save from Mason Mount, and it's the only real thing I can really remember him doing. So I think I don't want to go over the top. I don't want to go a little bit too low, but I'm going to just go for a 6. I think a 6 is a fair because I don't think he had too much to do, but what he did do was good. But listen, it's not a 9 or 10 rating.
No, I don't think it's that. Just sticking to type, mate. Oh, sorry, on you.
Sorry, he let himself down where players would pass the ball back to him and he would just hoof the ball, and it wasn't working. So it was just giving possession away that allowed England to retain and rotate possession without Scotland really getting up the park. So that was just my grudge that I had against him, but he's obviously been told to do that. But by the by, a 6.
So I'm giving David Marshall. We're getting some nice stuff in the comments there. Tom Ives, loving it. Nah. Kenny McLean. Kenny McLean would be great to have there for Scotland. I'm sure he would have been involved if he was available. Nick Miller says Scottish fans were great. Did some great videos uploaded yesterday. We'll be talking a bit more about that when I speak to Mr. Old Fun Facts at 11 o'clock, Nick. So that will be that will be of interest to you, maybe. But yeah, just sticking to type, Stefan. I'm going to give him a 7 because I thought he's an experienced head. He's obviously talking the whole time. He's playing an important role in terms of making sure that the back 5 is set up the way that it needs to be positionally, and it's all of the kind of intangible elements of being a goalkeeper that I think he sort of did really well with. So yeah, 7 from me for David Marshall, which brings us on to the Renaissance man, Stephen O'Donnell. So you gave him such a low rating in that first one. You gave him a 3, and I think he was really, really poor against the Czechs. But what character to bounce back for that, man. And like his interview where he sort of revealed that he'd kind of seen everything. I like the mix of sort of vulnerability, but like just headstrongness, saying, you know what, you've just got to block it out. And it's such a spotlight as well for a player who, I mean, he's playing in Scotland, so he's not getting the scrutiny of like an English Premier League player or anything like that. So to be thrust into the spotlight in such a way and given such criticism, it must be really hard. Like, and what struck me when I was watching that is he's younger than me, and I'm thinking I'd struggle to deal with that if folk criticise my work, which is obviously a lot less high profile than what he does.
Yeah,
I'd struggle with that. So I just think it was an amazing strength of character, and I'm so proud for him. I'm proud for him, for his family, for everything. It just like genuine emotion there that I'm happy for the guy.
It was a real test of his character because he had been thrust into the spotlight, and you know he received, I think, some well-leveled criticism, and I think the criticism he got was fair. I think there was some that was over the top, but you get that all the time. People do go that too far. I don't think giving him a 3 was too far. I thought he merited it. I was going to rate him a 1, but I thought that's too harsh. But listen, he performed amazingly on Friday night, and as I said, he kept Sterling, Foden, and Grealish in his back pocket. I don't know. I still
no mean feat, by the way. Every one of them a world-class player.
Yeah, exactly, and I think they're still trapped in there just now. You probably won't see them against the Czech Republic. But I think he performed in a way that he looked like he'd been doing this for years. He looked like a skilled pro at being able to mark world-class players out of the game. And he did it with an assurance and confidence, and even though he got tired, he still wasn't letting Jack Grealish come in and do anything fancy. That he just took him right out of the game with a challenge. And you're thinking, that's the desire and the sort of heart you want to see. He didn't put a foot wrong all night for me. He had a great shot stopped by Pickford. Had that gone in, you're thinking, oh my God, this guy's not only came back to put on the performance of his life, he's just bet England at Wembley thanks to his goal. But look, realistically, it was a performance of his career. I don't think he'll replicate that kind of performance. It really was.
I don't think he'll have that platform again, will he?
No.
I mean, he's never going to be in a situation where the eyes are on him as readily, and to stand up to that was amazing.
It was, and for the performance alone, he gets an 8 out of 10 for me. However, for a test of character and being able to come back from what was a lot of criticism that would test any person's sort of head, he gets a 10 out of 10 for me on that level. But performance based, 8 out of 10.
So I'll tell you what. Do you want me to round that up to a 9? Based on no. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You're such a harsh taskmaster, Mr. Stefan Carlin. I'm kind of envious of the level of harshness that you can exude when doing these. Stephen O'Donnell gets a 9 out of 10 for me, just kind of again sticking with our sort of thing. And I am adding the points basically in the exact same rationale. I mean, I've given all my reasons before, but on that rationale, I am totally happy to give that extra point for the exact same reason. So I am rounding mine up to a 9, and I think deservedly so, because I couldn't do that. As a human being, I could not. I think you would either go one or two ways. You would either totally crumble and have another nightmare performance, particularly up against players of that standard, or you would go the other way. You would be overly determined and maybe get sent off, or just start hitting shots in situations you shouldn't, or throwing crosses in, But his decision making was spot on. It was so composed.
He was disciplined, and as I said, it's a credit to his mental fortitude, because he did everything to the letter that he had to do. He didn't go overboard with anything. He didn't go underboard. It was just, it was a great performance all night from him.
I completely agree. Shunting one along in the back five, McTominay. Scott McTominay. I always go right to left with these things. I don't know why that is. Some folk go left to right when naming teams, and it's not that I am biased between righties and lefties or anything like that. A lot of my favourite players are left-footed, Lionel Messi, for example, Diego Maradona. But I am very much a right to left guy when naming a team. Anyway, Scott McTominay. What are you giving him?
Listen, everybody knows I love Scott McTominay, McSauce. He's my boy. Absolutely love him as a player. He really is Rolls Royce. Didn't have the best performance against the Czech Republic, but I think he, again, like Stephen O'Donnell, he raised his game when it mattered, and he put in a stellar performance, bar one wee mistake, but it didn't come to anything, so we don't really focus on it. Listen, a great performance from Scott. Put into that defensive position again, where I think he really excels. Didn't really do too much right, didn't really do too much wrong. I think the one that really bumps the score up for me a little bit was at the end, and the scramble. He just threw himself right into that to say, no chance. Yeah, I might be English, but you're not scoring. And the way he just put himself right on the firing line was sensational. So for that reason and a performance as well, he's going to get a 7.
7. Okay. Again, I think that's is it a bit harsh? I mean, you went into the realms of half points the last time, and I kind of feel inclined to just give a better rating than you, but I actually think a 7's fair for him. On the note that he's English, I put out a tweet a few weeks ago, I think it was during the Luxembourg game, where I said English accent, but Scottish face. Like, you can tell he's of Scottish descent with that.
He was raging that day, wasn't he? he was fuming that day, and I love to see it. I thought he's going to absolutely batter somebody in a minute. It was just sensational.
I loved it. No, I think a 7's fair for Scott McTominay. I think he applied himself really, really well. He showed that bravery and determination that you would expect. And I mean, to sort of hark back to what I said in the last pod, he did look like a Man United player in the Scotland team, albeit not the Darren Fletcher type, because he's a lot more tenacious and stuff than Fletcher. Fletcher was more a kind of classy ball-playing midfielder. But and I think, like you, it's his ideal position for Scotland. It maximises his attributes because obviously playing in defence, the way the modern game is, you're going to see more of the ball. And I think having the ability to come out with the ball is really important. And the axis of him and Tierney both able to drive out and come out with the ball and pass it and distribute it. And then Billy Gilmour, who we're going to get to, just with the way he can move a football around a pitch. I just think that deep area, Scotland are really, really good now. And it's not the launch it to the front man and hope to feed off scraps. It's actually building through the phases of the pitch and phases of play, which is much, much better. Grant Hanley, I'm going first with this one.
I don't know if you want breaking news or not, but Billy Gilmour tested positive for COVID.
You are kidding me on.
It just says here, it's on Joe. It just says Scotland's Billy Gilmour test positive for COVID-19 and will likely miss the rest of the campaign.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal, mate. That's just killed me.
I've just seen it. That's not great. You know, when you look at it, because we'll come on to rating them in a minute, but
let's just get through the rest of these ratings. But the happiness has just been sucked out of me instantly there.
It's just the SFA have just tweeted, the Scotland national team have just said we can confirm Billy Gilmour has tested positive for COVID-19. Having liaised with Public Health England, Billy will now self-isolate for 10 days and therefore miss tomorrow's UEFA Euro 2020 Group D match with Croatia at Hampden. It's a bit of a bitter.
That's horrible. I'm gutted about that. No, mate, it's right to do that because anybody watching this podcast will want to know that. So,
yeah.
I'm just an emotional wreck on this, by the way, for anybody that's watching. It's just like going from happiness to sadness, like wholly bipolar. Going to get back into the mind space of being happy. Grant Hanley is a 9 out of 10. Harry who? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Could have had Harry Potter up front, there'd have been no magic, just had him in his pocket. And it was really good to see because, as we've alluded to before on the pod, mate, there's a lot of misconception in among Scotland fans about Grant Hanley. And I think finally he showed Scotland fans everything that he's all about. And every Norwich fan in the land thought he was man of the match, but
yeah,
Billy Gilmour was man of the match. Grant Hanley's getting a 9 for me, mate. What are you giving him?
Listen, it was a great performance from Grant Hanley. That's the second performance in a row where I've really looked at how he's played and I've thought this is a solid performance, a stellar performance. He didn't put a foot wrong all night. He defended well and he kept Harry Kane out of the game. However, saying that, you look at Harry Kane, yes, he's a good striker. However, people overplay his ability and like to pretend he's better than a certain Polish striker. So listen, I think Harry Kane's overrated. I think he always has been overrated. However, you shouldn't underestimate how hard of a player he is to play against. And Grant Hanley put in a top performance, marking him out the game so much so that he had to be substituted. So for me, the rating I'm going to give Grant Hanley is a 8.
Fair enough. That seems that's in keeping with our usual format of you being 1 rating point less than me. Kieran Tierney.
Listen, we all seen how Tierney his loss against the Czech Republic sort of impacted the game. He was a massive loss, but bringing him back in for Wembley was brilliant. He didn't put a foot wrong all night. He was exceptional in the extreme and defended really well. Didn't put a foot wrong. Just trying to think, he carried the ball really well. He linked up with Robertson on a few occasions really well. So yeah, on that basis, an 8.
Yeah, actually in agreement with that. I think it was good. I think having Kieran Tierney in the team, Billy Gilmour's obviously a massive, going to be a massive loss to us, but I don't think he's as indispensable as Kieran Tierney is. And I'm sure if you speak to Steve Clarke, I think he will believe that we can handle the loss of Billy Gilmour a lot better. And I mean, it makes sense. We've got more midfielders that are good players than we do defenders. I mean, he's basically threading a defence together through tactical ingenuity, playing a midfielder and a left back there. I think the dynamic of sort of Tierney and Robertson bombing down the left, maybe given the nature of the opposition, wasn't quite as prominent as it maybe could have been and would have been, I'm sure, against the Czechs had Tierney been fit. But Kieran Tierney's a defender with poise, and in my opinion, he's the best defender on that park. See, in terms of his overall ability, defensively, attacking, and I mean, the one thing that Kieran Tierney's always had, I've said this a few times, is you know that thing of when do you step up and press an opponent and when do you stand off? Kieran Tierney's intrinsically known to do that since he was 16. You know, like you've always seen, it's just an innate thing in him. And at centre back, that's a really important facet of his game. I think, I mean, if I was being really harsh, I could have said you could maybe do more going forward, perhaps. But I mean, he's playing centre back. He brought poise, he brought assurance, and was defensively brilliant. So it's an 8 from me as well. Which brings us on to the skipper, Andy Robertson. What did you think of him?
Listen, sorry, 2 seconds.
That's all right, mate. I'm just
the wrong person. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I'm seeing a lot of reaction coming into the Billy Gilmour stuff as well.
I've just seen that. Listen, there's no close contacts according to Rahman from STV. So I mean, that's a positive. You would say, well, pardon the pun. That's a positive. But listen, Andy Robertson put in one hell of a performance against the Czech Republic, arguably his best performance in a Scotland shirt. Against England, that was replicated. I thought he was fantastic on Friday night, and he really minimised the threat of all the attacking options that England had. Didn't put a foot wrong, and again intertwined with Tierney and dovetailed really nicely. And just like the rest of the defence, I rate him highly and give him an 8.
Fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. I'm same rating actually. Again, I think we're finding a bit of joy in jointating players. I gave Andy Robertson an 8 against the Czechs. I give him an 8 the other night. I just think he's wholeheartedly a Scotland captain. I just think every bit of him, post-match as well, just the way the words he used, the way he conducts himself, it's just befitting of a skipper. And I mean, he's obviously quite young to be a national team captain. It's just given the amazing trajectory his career's taken, proper Hollywood story, rags to riches. And I think he just embodies the role of being the Scotland captain now. And I think I'm just really proud of him. I'm proud of them all, but I'm dead proud of him. Again, my only thing would have been maybe a bit more going forward, perhaps, and that could have bumped it up to a 9. But no, I think I'll stick with an 8 as well, because I think he was really good defensively, organised the team well. You could definitely see him talking, like whenever there was like sort of short breaks and stuff. He was the one that was going over and saying what he needed for the midfielders, you know. And I think I think it was really, really good, assured captain's performance. What you would want, 8 out of 10 for Andy Robertson. Which now brings us to the next one, which is Billy Gilmour. Now looks altogether different, given that this is probably going to be his only appearance at the tournament.
Yeah, hopefully if Scotland can beat Croatia, then hopefully not. You know, he might be back just in time when we go and face someone else. But listen, a bitter blow, considering the performance he put in on Friday night, and he you know, considering that trying my words out, considering that was his first start for Scotland, and he was man of the match. it really, really is a bitter one to swallow. However, no close contacts have been identified, which is great. So he's the only one that will have to self-isolate, which is a positive within a negative. But listen, there's players in there that can do the job that Gilmour did. Your Armstrong.
A wee bit, no as well. Nobody can play. So what Billy Gilmour did is he has that ability that he zips a pass forward, right? Yeah. And when he's under pressure for even 2 or 3 England players, right? What any other player, and I would say just about any other player in the Scotland team would do in that situation is they would play a pass maybe to the fullback or backwards. He's zipping passes in that get you on the turn and attacking England. You know what I mean? Breaking that press. Time and time again, we zipped passes that are played with the correct weight. And just, I mean, given that he's only just turned 20, it's incredible the assurance that he shows. He's just naturally an amazing footballer. And yeah, I thought it was phenomenal. And I was going to give him a 9.5 out of 10, but given that it might be his only performance at the tournament, I'm bumping that up to a 10. And I just think it was a record number of passes at a major tournament for a Scotland player at 20 years old in your competitive debut and also your first start. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Listen, I had a rating that I was going to give him, but before we came on air today, I'm not going to change that rating just because he's ended up out with COVID. I am going to give him a 9. I think him and O'Donnell were the best 2 players on the park for Scotland on Friday night, and both did their job superbly. So I am going to stick with a 9. But hopefully it's not the last time we need to rate him at the tournament, because here's hoping we can still go through.
No, it's pure put a semi-downer on this man, but it's just Scotland, isn't it? Like, if you're a Scotland fan, it's never going to be straightforward, man.
I've just had a text from my old man, by the way, and he said about how there's no close contacts, and he went, well, that'll be good news for England, because not to get absolutely anywhere near him on Friday night, so they'll be happy about that.
Spot on, Stefan's old man.
But yeah, listen, real gutter. But listen, we're Scotland. We never do anything easy.
None's ever easy, man. I think Billy Gilmour was phenomenal, and I can't use superlatives high enough for his performance. He's going to run the Scotland midfield for 15, maybe 20 years. He's unbelievable footballer. Yeah. Let's talk now about Callum McGregor, drafted back into the starting lineup. How did you think he performed?
Callum McGregor had an absolutely horrendous season at Celtic, and a sort of season that many Celtic players had. But I thought Friday night, he rocked up to Wembley with that old swagger that Callum McGregor used to have, and he absolutely did his job. Did not do anything wrong, was there, always making a pass, always willing to take the ball, always willing to run. Never played a safe pass, mind you. You know, everyone always talks about how he's a safe passer, but he had some nice passing, had some nice movement. He played well, and I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think a 7's fair.
I think a 7 is fair as well, for all of the reasons that you just said. John McGinn, super John McGinn.
Outstanding player, and one that Scotland are really becoming to rely on. But just like Callum McGregor, he didn't put a foot wrong. Did his job extremely well. But I can't really. I look at how Billy Gilmour played. He's the best midfielder on the park. And for that, John McGinn played well enough that he gets a 7.
It's the same with me. The one thing I would like to see him do, which would have bumped it up maybe to an 8, is obviously in the sort of the World Cup qualifiers and towards the end of the last Euro campaign, he's become Scotland's current talisman, hasn't he? Like in terms of goals and in terms of those late runs into the box. And we were now, granted it was England, it was a tough game, but we're only seeing flashes of that. I want to see him do that consistently over like the best part of 90 minutes. I want to see him getting into the box and influencing things at the top end of the pitch a wee bit more. And he's got a couple of guys that he can combine with now, you know, and Adams and Dykes. And I should say, by the way, I think Scotland should absolutely stick with those two in every game now. Like, I hope Steve Clarke doesn't revert to a midfielder or two kind of tens again. But at the same time, Steve Clarke, you're the boss, mate. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job.
I think for me, sorry, just quickly, I know we're running out of time, but I think obviously with Billy Gilmour being out, I really hope he doesn't take McTominay out of defence and slot him back in there. I think your midfield has to be McGregor, McGinn and Armstrong. If I'm being honest. I don't want Ryan Christie anywhere near that squad, by the way. I'm sick to death of Ryan Christie. Great player on his day, but he's not had his day. Since Serbia. So yeah, listen, has to be Armstrong. But yeah, listen, people can be down about Billy Gilmour, that's fine, but it's Scotland. We never do it the easy way. So I'm still buzzing, still right up for this.
It's all right. I'm beginning to digest the news, but obviously having something like that kind of break during this stream is kind of set it in a slightly different trajectory from what we might have expected. I agree with your rating for John McGinn. I think it's accurate. I would like to see a wee bit more from him. But on to that front too now. We have Shea Adams that we'll look at first of all. Now, Shea Adams impacted the game a bit when he came on against the Czechs, but I just think, and it's almost like we should rate them as a pairing, I think, Adams and Dykes, because they just dovetail so beautifully. Adams dropping in, moving into the channel, Dykes stretching it as the target man. It just works so well. Just gives a couple of goals, lads. That's all that we really need to add to it. But I thought Adams, with his application, his dynamism, his movement, outstanding, and has brought a whole new dimension. Another thing I said in my poem, he's brought a whole new dimension to that Scotland team, and I'm so happy we've got him. He's added a certain je ne sais quoi to the whole operation, I think.
This is where people are going to say you're far too harsh, Stefan. But listen, I like the way Dykes and I like the way Dykes and Adams pair together. I think they do dovetail wonderfully. Dykes with the head on, the knock on, and Adams to be able to capture that ball. However, I don't think enough of that was done on Friday night. I thought Tyrone Mings and John Stones coped fairly well with the threat of Dykes and Adams. Adams had a good couple of opportunities to put Scotland ahead. One where he completely mishit the ball, and the other when O'Donnell shot, Pickford saved, and he headed wide. I think I know it was a split second he had to react to it, but you're wanting your striker to be able to do that. He came on and changed the game on last Monday, a week ago today. He came on and changed the game well, but I don't want to sound too harsh, but I don't think he did enough against England. He had opportunities. I think he just snatched at them. And had he taken time, had he taken a second or two to compose himself, could have been looking at a different scenario here. But listen, for me, Shea Adams, people are going to say it's harsh, but he's a 5.
Oh, your gig doing the ratings for the Croatia game could be in jeopardy here, Stefan. That's if you're available, by the way, mate. I've no check. I think that's OTT in the extreme. You were kind of talking about them as a pair there, so I'll let you do your Dykes rating.
Lyndon Dykes, again, he did his job well of knocking the ball on, but again, I don't think we've seen enough of it. We were all talking before the tournament that Lyndon Dykes can ragdoll. I think it was Harry Maguire we all mentioned, but he obviously get injured or inevitably get the fear of Lyndon Dykes and decided to say it. So John Stones and Tyrone Mings came in and stepped up, and they dealt with him admirably. They dealt with him well. He didn't really do too much that would really petrify them. The main job of a striker is to score goals, and he didn't. I'm not going to quite rate him a 3, but I'm going to sit him with Adams on a 5. Although they dovetailed quite nicely, I don't think they did enough as a strike partnership that you would want. And I think anything more than a 5 is just me pandering to the crowd. I'm not willing to do that.
Wow. I think they worked really well. I thought there was great endeavour. I think there could have been a bit more poise in and around the box, but I see that as something that can be remedied. I think Shea Adams' movement was superb. I think Lyndon Dykes was fantastic in his role as the target. I do agree about the kind of composure element a bit, but at the same time, I think they were both intrinsically valuable to the functioning of the team as a whole. So they're both getting 7s off me. I just think they were. I don't think they were not on the level of a Callum McGregor or a John McGinn. I think they were on that level during the game. So that's why I would stick them in the same thing. And I'm going to revise an earlier rating. I'm going to put Scott McTominay up to an 8. Because I feel that when I look at that and I look at the other players that I've rated a 7, so Marshall, McGregor, McGinn, Adams, Dykes, I thought McTominay was better than them. So I'm bringing him up to an 8. That's us for the starting player 8, and we have sort of 5 minutes to quickly go through the substitutes. There was Stuart Armstrong and Kevin Nisbet came on. Just quickly, any thoughts on them? To be honest, I think they kind of paled a wee bit, just given the way that everything else was sort of going in the game. I don't think they were particularly prominent. I think Armstrong was all right when he came on, and I think he definitely showed enough that midfield 3 that you mentioned could work in Gilmour's absence. Although, were Billy Gilmour available, absolutely I would start with the exact same team.
I think for me, I don't think I've seen enough to be able to give them a fair rating. I think this happened last week as well, where there was some subs that I couldn't physically say they did anything right or they did anything wrong. So for that basis, I'm going to give both a 5. I think Sky rated Nisbet and gave him like an N-A as if not applicable because he wasn't on long enough. Don't want to do that, so I'll hit them with a 5. But I thought Armstrong played well when he came on. And again, it just gives me confidence that he can slot into that midfield and replace Billy Gilmour on Tuesday night. But listen, I don't think anything over a 5 again, I don't think would be fair, but anything below would be totally unmerited. So it's a 5.
So it's a 5. And what about Nisbet?
Again, the same.
I just did the same for the same reasons. I'm going to stick with 5s for them because I didn't want to do the thing where I rated. Actually, I'll give Armstrong a 6, I think, just on the basis of kind of rating that. Now, that brings us to the boss man, right? So we have Steve Clark. You rated him a 4.5 on the scale against the Czechs, and I rated him a 5, which I now feel pure guilty about in some ways. But I think, to be honest, it was merited given the sort of lack of kind of ingenuity in terms of the second half with the substitutions and stuff. I'm giving Steve Clark, and I'm going to take your lead, and I'm going to go with an 8.5 for how I'm rating his job in the England. Actually, do you know what? No, I'm bumping that up to a 9 because I think he got his team spot on. The team was leaked earlier in the day, which I suppose you could argue shouldn't have happened. Not that you would necessarily put that at the manager's door. But I saw the team earlier in the day and I said, if this is the team, because I knew he was going to stick with Stephen O'Donnell. And just because he was the experienced option and the dependable one at right back, and he knew what he could get out of him. And I knew that he knew his character to bounce back for that. So I was confident he would do that. And then I saw the team and I thought, he's absolutely nailed this. He's made every change that I would have, except maybe, obviously I would have been inclined to fling Patterson in. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Got the team right, had them motivated, had them disciplined, had them ready to apply themselves, and went out and gave my favourite performance that Scotland have done in a major tournament in my lifetime. And the only thing that stops it being a 10 out of 10 is the fact we didn't win the game. If we'd won the game, he would have been a 10 as well.
The thing about Steve Clarke is he always sets up his team not to lose, and I think that's one of the most admirable facts about him, is that he does set up so well. The team choice was questioned by many, especially the inclusion of Stephen O'Donnell, but he doesn't give a toss what people have to say. He's the man that makes the decisions, and he stood up and made the decision that he felt he needed to by keeping O'Donnell in. It paid off. It worked wonders. It was a great decision. It was leadership, and the sort of to the extreme. He really showed how much of a good leader and manager and coach he is, not just on the football, but also on a personal level with Stephen O'Donnell. So, listen, it was a great performance by Scotland. They followed his game plan to a T. And yeah, bar the win, I think he got everything right, but I'm not going to take any points off of him for not getting a win, because I think going to Wembley and playing the way that we did was a win in itself. So listen, I'm going to give him the highest rating of all. I'm going to give him a 10, because I don't think he got anything wrong whatsoever. It's a performance to build on. So yeah, listen, 10 out of 10 for Steve Clarke. He didn't put a foot wrong, and I'm just chuffed we've got him as manager, because a lot of people underrate him.
Totally. A bit like Scotland going into that game against England, my reaction to that, I did not know that you had a 10 out of 10 in your Arsenal, mate. That's definitely set the cat among the pigeons a wee bit, for a less cliched turn of phrase. But yes, mate, what we're going to do is so for anyone that's watching this and has enjoyed it, then please do subscribe to the Tartan Daily, which you can do on podcast players. You can also make sure and do subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can see all my content, which is streaming once every day, or given that I've no managed to get one out yesterday due to internet issues, I'm doing 2 a day, which I'm going to flit right on to next. So I have Adam Miller, Mr. Old Firm Facts himself, is coming on, and we're going to talk a bit more about the kind of banterous stuff and things like that around it, and maybe a bit about the TV coverage, which he's always got some very, very humorous thoughts on. But Stefan, if people want to find you, where can they find you, mate?
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Stefan Carlin, and if you obviously want to listen to Dave Stefano Talks when it comes back in August, at Dave Stefano Talks on Twitter. So you can find me over there on both.
Excellent. Make sure and do that, everyone, and you can obviously subscribe on the wee instructions in the ticker. I'm now going to play my outro video, but thank you very much. No Scotland, no party. Thank you for watching today's Tartan Daily. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be doing each of these every day during the Euros, as long as Scotland are in the tournament. Remember, you can find me. I'm Hodgeythehack. That's HODGEY, the Hack, on all social media. So that's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. If you were watching the stream on YouTube today, then please remember to hit the bell for notifications of future streams. And if you're listening on the podcast, then you can subscribe on your major podcast players, and please give a rating or a comment saying how much you enjoyed it. And remember, if you're enjoying these podcasts, then please share them with all your friends. Thank you very much for watching or listening. And remember, no Scotland, no party.